The day I was thrown out like a dog, I said nothing about my husband's $38 million inheritance. My name is Sibylla, and I am 32 years old. 8 years of marriage, 8 years of paying every bill, 8 years of loving a family that was never truly mine. And when they pushed me out the door with nothing but a small suitcase, I stood there in the rain and kept my mouth shut. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I knew something they did not. Before we begin, let me know where you are watching from today. Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe if you have not already. Trust me, you are going to want to stay for this one. Because what happened next changed everything. To understand why I chose silence that night, I need to take you back 8 years to the moment I first met the man I thought would be my forever. I grew up in a small town in Ohio, the kind of place where everybody knows your name and your business. My father worked as an auto mechanic, his hands always stained with grease, his heart always full of love for our family. My mother was a nurse at the local hospital, pulling double shifts to make sure my brother and I had everything we needed. We were not rich, but we were comfortable. More importantly, we were happy. I was the first person in my family to go to college. I studied accounting because I was good with numbers and because I wanted stability. I wanted to build something solid for myself. By the time I graduated, I'd accumulated about $45,000 in student loan debt, which felt like a mountain I would never climb. But I was determined. After graduation, I packed up my life and moved to Boston. I found a job at a small accounting firm, nothing glamorous, but it paid the bills. I rented a tiny studio apartment that barely fit a bed and a desk. Every night I would come home exhausted, heat up a frozen dinner, and remind myself that this was temporary, that I was building towards something better. For 2 years, that was my life. Work, sleep, repeat. I did not have time for dating or socializing. All my energy went into paying off my loans and proving myself at the firm. Then one rainy Tuesday morning, everything changed. I was running late to work and desperately needed coffee. I ducked into this little cafe near my office, the kind of place with mismatched chairs and handwritten menus. I was standing in line checking emails on my phone when suddenly I felt something hot splash across my chest. I looked up to see a tall man with brown hair and apologetic eyes holding an empty coffee cup. He had tripped over his own feet and spilled his entire drink on my white blouse. "Oh my God, I am so sorry," he said, grabbing napkins from the counter. "I cannot believe I just did that. I am such an idiot." He was genuinely flustered, his cheeks turning red as he tried to help me clean up. Something about his awkwardness was endearing. He was not polished or suave. He was real. "It is fine," I said, even though it was not fine at all. I was going to have to go back to my apartment and change, which meant I would definitely be late. "Please let me buy you another coffee, and pay for your dry cleaning, and maybe your therapy bills after dealing with me," he said with a nervous laugh. I could not help but smile. "Just the coffee will be fine." His name was Derek. He told me he worked in construction freelance stuff, mostly helping out on different projects around the city. He was wearing an old jacket that had seen better days, jeans with paint stains, work boots that were scuffed and worn. Everything about him screamed ordinary, and after years of focusing on nothing but work, ordinary felt refreshing. We exchanged numbers that day. He texted me that night to apologize again and to ask if I would like to grab dinner sometime. I said yes. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant, nothing fancy, just good food and good conversation. Derek was funny in a self-deprecating way. He made me laugh with stories about disastrous construction projects and difficult clients. He seemed humble, down to earth. When the check came, he suggested we split it. I appreciated that. It felt equal, respectful. I was so tired of the games and expectations that came with dating. This felt different. This felt honest. Over the next few months, we fell into an easy rhythm. We would meet for dinner a couple times a week, always at affordable places. Sometimes he paid, sometimes I paid, sometimes we split. He never tried to impress me with expensive gifts or grand gestures. He impressed me with his time, his attention, his presence. Derek told me about his childhood, and my heart broke for him. His parents divorced when he was 7. His father disappeared entirely, never paid child support, never called. His mother struggled with addiction and eventually lost custody. Derek and his older brother Marcus were raised by their grandmother, a woman named Harriet, who lived in a modest house in the suburbs. "Grandma Harriet saved us," Derek told me one night, his voice soft with emotion. "She took us in when nobody else would. She worked 2 jobs to feed us, put clothes on our backs, kept us in school. Everything I am is because of her. I found this story incredibly moving. Here was a man who had overcome so much, who came from nothing, who valued family above all else. I thought we were the same. I thought we understood each other. About 6 months into our relationship, Derek took me to meet his grandmother. We drove out to the suburbs on a Sunday afternoon. The house was small and old, with peeling paint and a garden that needed tending. But inside it was warm and welcoming. Harriet was in her late 70s with silver hair and gentle eyes. She moved slowly, arthritis making every step an effort, but her smile was bright when she saw us. "So, this is the girl you have been telling me about," she said, taking my hands in hers. Her skin was paper-thin and warm. "Derek talks about you all the time. I can see why. You have kind eyes." I loved her immediately. There was something so genuine about her, so authentic. We spent the afternoon drinking tea and looking at old photo albums. She told me stories about Derek and Marcus as children, about her late husband Harold, about a life full of love and struggle and perseverance. When we were leaving, Harriet pulled me aside. "Take care of my boy," she said quietly. "He needs someone like you, someone good." I promised her I would. There was one thing that struck me as odd that day, though I did not think much of it at the time. Derek mentioned his brother Marcus, but Marcus was not there. In fact, according to Derek, Marcus lived in California and rarely came home to visit. The brothers were not close. "We had a falling out years ago," Derek explained on the drive back. "Money stuff, family drama. You know how it goes. We barely talk anymore." I nodded sympathetically. Every family has its problems. I did not press for details. After 2 years of dating, Derek proposed. It was simple and sweet on the anniversary of the day we met. He got down on one knee in that same little cafe where he had spilled coffee on me. The ring was modest, a small diamond on a thin gold band, but I did not care. I would have said yes to a ring made of paper. Our wedding was small. Just Harriet, a few of my friends, and my parents who flew in from Ohio. Marcus did not come. Derek said he had work obligations in California that he could not get out of. I was disappointed not to meet my brother-in-law, but I understood. Or I thought I did. On our wedding day, Harriet hugged me tightly after the ceremony. "You are the best thing that has ever happened to this family," she whispered in my ear. "Remember that, no matter what." I thought she was just being sentimental. Just the emotions of a grandmother watching her grandson get married. But now, looking back, I wonder if she knew something. If she was trying to warn me. That night after the reception, I woke up around 2 a.m. to find Derek was not in bed. I found him on the balcony of our hotel room, talking quietly on his phone. When he saw me, he quickly ended the call. "Who was that?" I asked. "Just work stuff," he said. "Nothing important. Come back to bed." I wanted to believe him. So I did. We settled into married life in a small 2-bedroom apartment in the suburbs of Boston. It was a rental, nothing special, but I dreamed of someday owning our own home. From the beginning, our finances were lopsided. I was working full-time at the accounting firm, steadily climbing the ladder. Within 2 years of getting married, I had been promoted to senior accountant, and my salary had nearly doubled. Meanwhile, Derek's work was unpredictable. Construction was seasonal, he explained. Sometimes he had projects, sometimes he did not. In the first year of our marriage, I paid approximately 70% of our expenses. By the second year, it was closer to 90%. Derek always promised things would get better. The next project would pay more. The next opportunity was just around the corner. "Just give me time," he would say. "I am working on something big. It is going to change everything." I believed him because I wanted to believe him. Because I loved him, because I thought we were a team. But the big opportunity never came, and gradually I became the sole provider for our household. I paid the rent, the utilities, the groceries, the insurance. I paid off my student loans while also supporting both of us. I did the cooking, the cleaning, the laundry. Derek spent more and more time on the couch watching television, scrolling through his phone. "I am between projects," he would say whenever I gently asked about his job search. "You know how the industry is. It is all about connections. I am networking." I never saw any evidence of this networking, but I was too busy working 60-hour weeks to push the issue. In our 3rd year of marriage, I finally saved enough for a down payment on a house. $80,000, every penny of it from my salary. I found a lovely 3-bedroom home in a quiet neighborhood, with a small backyard and a kitchen that got beautiful morning light. When I told Derek about my plan to buy a house, he was enthusiastic. "This is great, babe," he said. "Our own place. We can finally start building equity. Let me handle some of the paperwork." I should have been more careful. I should have paid attention to the details. But I was exhausted from working so hard, and I trusted my husband. When the deed came through with both our names on it, I did not question it. Of course, both names would be on it. We were married. What was mine was ours. I did not realize then that I was signing away my safety net. After we moved into the house, Derek became even less motivated to work. He said he was taking some time to figure out his next move to consider his options. Weeks turned into months. Months turned into years. Meanwhile, Harriet's health began to decline. She was diagnosed with early-stage heart disease and needed more care. Derek said he was too busy looking for work to help out. "You are so good with her, Sibylla," he told me. "She loves spending time with you. Why do not you handle the doctor visits? I will contribute more when I get my next project." So I became Harriet's caretaker on top of everything else. I drove her to her cardiology appointments, picked up her prescriptions, cooked meals for her every Sunday. I did not mind. I genuinely loved Harriet. She was the grandmother I had always wanted, warm and wise and endlessly kind. During our Sunday visits, Harriet and I would talk for hours. She told me about her life with her husband Harold, who had passed away 15 years before I met Derek. "Harold was a good man," she said one afternoon, her eyes misty with memory. "He worked hard his whole life, built something from nothing. He always said that what mattered most was not what you have, but who you love." She showed me old photographs of Harold, a handsome man with kind eyes and a confident smile. There were pictures of him in front of various buildings, shaking hands with important-looking people, cutting ribbons at grand openings. "Was he in real estate?" I asked, noting the nature of the photos. "Something like that," Harriet said vaguely. "He had his businesses, but all that is in the past now. What matters is the present. What matters is family." I did not think much of it at the time. Harold had been dead for over a decade. Whatever he had built was ancient history. But there was one Sunday that changed everything. It was about 5 years into my marriage. Harriet had been having a bad week, her heart acting up, her energy low. I came over to bring her soup and keep her company. "Sibylla," she said, her voice more serious than I'd ever heard it. "Come sit with me. There is something I need to give you." She reached under her pillow and pulled out a small wooden box about the size of a jewelry case. It was old and worn with a tarnished brass latch. "I want you to keep this safe for me," she said, pressing it into my hands. "Do not open it. Do not tell anyone you have it. Not Derek, not Marcus, nobody. Just keep it somewhere secure. When the time is right, you will know what to do." I was confused and a little frightened. "Grandma Harriet, what is this about? Are you okay?" She smiled, but there was sadness in her eyes. "I am an old woman, Sibylla. I have lived long enough to know that people are not always what they seem. But you are genuine. You have a good heart. That is why I am trusting you with this. But what is inside, promise me first. Promise you will keep it secret." I promised. Of course I promised. I would have done anything for her. I took the box home that night and hid it in the back of my desk drawer at my office. Not at home, not where Derek might find it. Something about the gravity of Harriet's request made me protective. Over the next few weeks, I noticed changes in Derek. He seemed distracted, often checking his phone with a frown. He started taking long walks in the evening, saying he needed to clear his head. And he was talking to Marcus more often, which was strange given their supposed estrangement. "I thought you and your brother did not get along," I said one night. "We are trying to reconnect," Derek said smoothly. "Life is short, you know, family is important." On the surface, it sounded reasonable. Healthy, even. But something felt off. There was a tension in Derek's shoulders, a guardedness in his eyes that I had never seen before. One evening, I came home early from work and heard Derek on the phone in the backyard. He did not see me. I stood by the kitchen window and listened. "I am telling you, she does not know anything," Derek was saying. Grandma never talks about that stuff with her. They just gossip and look at old pictures. A pause. Then, I know the money is there somewhere. We just need to find the will. The old one only covers the house, but there has to be more. Dad left everything to her, and you know she never spent it. Another pause. I am handling it. Just be patient. When the time comes, we will get what is ours. I felt the blood drain from my face. I stepped back from the window, my heart pounding. What was he talking about? What money? What will I wanted to confront him right then and there, but something stopped me. Call it instinct, call it survival. I realized in that moment that I needed to be smart. I needed information. I needed to understand what I was dealing with before I made any moves. So I said nothing. I acted normal when Derek came inside. I smiled and asked about his day, and I began watching, waiting, listening. 2 months after that overheard phone call, Harriet passed away. She went peacefully in her sleep, just as she always said she wanted to go. But the loss hit me harder than I expected. I wept for days. She had become my grandmother too, the one who listened without judgment, who offered wisdom without lectures, who loved me simply for being me. Derek seemed sad but composed. He handled the funeral arrangements efficiently, calling various services, notifying relatives, managing the logistics. I was too grief-stricken to help much. I sat in our bedroom looking at photos of Harriet and me, remembering all our Sunday conversations. The funeral was held at a small church near Harriet's house. About 30 people attended, mostly neighbors and old friends. And for the first time in 8 years of marriage, I finally met Marcus. He arrived in a black Mercedes wearing a tailored suit and expensive shoes. Everything about him screamed money, from his designer watch to his professionally styled hair. He was the complete opposite of Derek, polished and confident where Derek was casual and uncertain. Marcus acknowledged me with a brief nod, but did not offer condolences or make small talk. Throughout the service, he sat with Derek, the two of them whispering occasionally while the pastor spoke. After the burial, people gathered at Harriet's house for refreshments. I moved through the crowd, accepting hugs and sympathies, feeling hollow inside. At one point, I went to the kitchen to refill the coffee pot and found Derek and Marcus in deep conversation by the back door. They stopped talking the moment they saw me. "How are you holding up?" Marcus asked, his voice flat, his eyes assessing. "I am managing," I said. "Harriet meant a lot to me." Marcus made a sound that might have been acknowledgement. "She talked about you a lot, said you were practically family." There was something in his tone that made the word family sound like an accusation. "She was a wonderful woman," I said carefully. "I will miss her every day." Marcus and Derek exchanged a look I could not interpret. Then Marcus excused himself to speak with the lawyer who was handling the estate. Over the next few days, the atmosphere at home became increasingly strange. Derek was either absent or distracted, spending hours on phone calls he would not explain. When I asked what was going on, he brushed me off. "Just estate stuff," he said. "Legal paperwork. You know how complicated these things can be." But his behavior told a different story. He was searching through our house, going through drawers and closets with a fervor that seemed excessive. When I asked what he was looking for, he said he was just organizing, clearing out old junk. Then came the phone call that changed everything. I was at work when my cell rang. The caller ID showed an unfamiliar number, but the area code was local. I answered. "Mrs. Sibylla," a professional male voice asked. "This is Robert Chambers. I was Harriet's attorney. I need to speak with you privately. Can you come to my office this afternoon?" I felt a chill run through me. "Is this about Harriet's estate?" "Yes, but it is a matter that concerns you specifically. Please, it is important that you come alone." I agreed to meet him at 3:00. I did not tell Derek about the call. The law office of Robert Chambers was in a quiet building downtown. The waiting room was decorated with leather chairs and framed certificates. A receptionist offered me coffee while I waited. Mr. Chambers was a distinguished man in his 60s, with gray hair and wire-rimmed glasses. He shook my hand firmly and led me into his private office. "Thank you for coming," he said, gesturing to a chair. "I apologize for the secrecy, but Harriet was very specific about how this should be handled." "I do not understand," I said. "What does this have to do with me?" Mr. Chambers folded his hands on his desk. Mrs. Sibylla, were you aware that Harriet had 2 wills? I shook my head, my confusion deepening. The first will is public record. It divides her primary residence between her 2 grandsons, Derek and Marcus. That property is valued at approximately $200,000. He paused. But there is a second will, a private one. Harriet created it 5 years ago and updated it 3 years ago. Very few people knew of its existence. He opened a drawer and pulled out a thick envelope. Harriet's late husband, Harold, was not simply a real estate developer. He was the founder of several highly successful commercial property ventures across the northeastern United States. When he passed away 15 years ago, he left everything to Harriet. She never touched it. She lived modestly, kept the money invested, let it grow. My heart was beating so fast I could hear it in my ears. "How much are we talking about?" I whispered. Mr. Chambers looked at me with something like sympathy. "The current value of the estate is approximately $38 million. The room spun. I gripped the arms of my chair to steady myself. "And in her private will," he continued, "Harriet left 100% of that estate to you." I could not speak. I could not breathe. This had to be some kind of mistake. "There must be an error," I finally managed. "I am not even blood family. Why would she leave anything to me?" Mr. Chambers handed me a letter. "She anticipated you might react this way. She left this for you." With trembling hands, I opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter in Harriet's familiar shaky script. "My dearest Sibylla," the letter began. "If you are reading this, then I have moved on to join my Harold. Please do not be sad for me. I lived a full and blessed life. But there are things I need to tell you, things I could not say while I was still here. I know my grandsons. I raised them. I loved them. But I am not blind to who they have become. Derek has allowed himself to be weak. He has taken advantage of your kindness for years, letting you carry burdens that should have been shared. And Marcus has always been driven by greed. He came to me many times over the years asking about Harold's money, pressuring me to write it into my will. I refused. You are different, Sibylla. You never asked me for anything. You never expected anything. You simply loved me, visited me, cared for me when no one else would. You showed me what family should be. This money is my gift to you. Use it well. Build the life you deserve. And please do not let guilt make you question this decision. You have earned this through every meal you cooked, every doctor's appointment you attended, every Sunday afternoon you spent listening to an old woman's stories. The key I gave you opens a safe deposit box at First National Bank. Inside you will find all the documentation you need. Take care of yourself, dear girl. Remember that your worth is not determined by how others treat you. You are precious. Never forget that." With all my love, Harriet, tears were streaming down my face by the time I finished reading. Mr. Chambers handed me a tissue and waited patiently. "What do I do now?" I asked. "That is entirely up to you," he said. "We can file the will immediately, which will make everything public. Or we can wait. Harriet gave you complete discretion over the timing." I thought about Derek, about his secret phone calls and frantic searches, about the conversation I had overheard months ago. He knew there was more money somewhere. He just could not find it. "I need some time," I said. Mr. Chambers nodded. "Take all the time you need. When you are ready, call me." I drove home in a daze. $38 million. It was an impossible number, an amount I could not even comprehend. And Harriet had given it all to me. But more than the money, her letter haunted me. She had seen the truth about Derek long before I was willing to admit it. She had watched him use me and said nothing, biding her time, planning her own form of justice. When I got home, Derek was waiting for me with an eager expression. "Where have you been?" he asked. "I have been calling you." "I had some errands to run," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Why, what is going on?" "Marcus met with Grandma's lawyer today. They went over the will. The house gets split between us 50-50. "That is good, right?" Derek's face darkened. 200,000 split 2 ways is nothing. There has to be more. Dad left her everything when he died. She has to have accounts somewhere, investments, something. I watched him carefully, seeing him clearly perhaps for the first time. the greed in his eyes, the entitlement in his voice. He did not mourn his grandmother. He was calculating his inheritance. "I am sure if there was more, the lawyer would know about it," I said neutrally. Derek did not look convinced. "Marcus is pushing to get access to her financial records. He says there are discrepancies. We are going to figure this out." I nodded and went to the kitchen to start dinner. And I made a decision. I would wait. I would watch. I would see exactly what kind of man I had married. The next 2 weeks were the longest of my life. Derek and Marcus met almost daily, poring over whatever documents they could obtain, making phone calls to banks and financial advisors. They were convinced there was a hidden fortune somewhere, and they were determined to find it. Their frustration grew with each dead end. And as their frustration grew, Derek's treatment of me changed. It started small. Critical comments about dinner, complaints about how I folded the laundry, irritated sighs when I asked him simple questions. "Can you not see I am busy?" he snapped one evening when I asked if he wanted tea. "I am dealing with serious family business here." Family business? As if I was not family. As if 8 years of marriage meant nothing. Then the accusations began. One night, Derek confronted me in the living room. Marcus was there too, sitting in my favorite armchair like he owned the place. "Sibylla, we need to talk," Derek said, his voice hard. "About what? About Grandma. About what she might have told you." I kept my expression neutral. "Harriet and I talked about a lot of things. What specifically are you asking?" "Did she ever mention money?" Marcus cut in. "Accounts, investments, safety deposit boxes." My mind flashed to the small wooden box hidden in my office, to the key inside, to the $38 million that was legally mine. "No," I said calmly. "We talked about her life, her memories, family recipes, that sort of thing." "You are lying." Marcus stood up, his face twisting with anger. "She was obsessed with you. Always talking about how wonderful you are, how kind, how caring. If she was going to tell anyone where the money is, it would be you." "I do not know what you want me to say. Harriet never discussed finances with me." Derek was watching me with narrowed eyes. "Think harder. Maybe she mentioned something in passing. A bank name, a location, anything." "I am sorry. I cannot help you." The atmosphere in the room grew cold. I could feel their suspicion, their hostility radiating toward me. "This is ridiculous," Derek muttered. "She has to know something." "Maybe she is hiding it," Marcus said, not bothering to lower his voice. "Maybe she is planning to take whatever Grandma left for herself." I stood up. "I have listened to enough of this. I am going to bed." "Sit down." Derek's voice cracked like a whip. "We are not done." I looked at my husband, this man I had loved and supported for 8 years. I saw no warmth in his eyes, no respect, only cold calculation. "I am done," I said quietly. "You can continue this conversation without me." I walked to our bedroom and locked the door. I could hear them talking in low, angry tones for another hour before Marcus finally left. The next morning, Derek acted like nothing had happened. He made coffee, asked about my day, kissed my cheek before I left for work. But I knew the truth now. I had seen behind the mask. Over the following days, I noticed small signs that someone had been going through my things. Drawers not quite closed properly, papers slightly out of order. Derek was searching, looking for any evidence of what Harriet might have given me. He would not find anything. The box was safe at my office, locked in a drawer only I could access. Then came the evening that shattered everything. I came home from work to find Derek and Marcus waiting in the living room. Their expressions told me this was not going to be a pleasant conversation. "We need to talk," Derek said. "Sit down." I remained standing. "What is this about?" "About your lies." Marcus was not even pretending to be civil now. "We know Grandma gave you something. One of the neighbors saw her hand you a box a few months before she died." My heart dropped, but I kept my face steady. "She gave me some old photographs," I said. "Sentimental things. Nothing valuable." "Then you would not mind showing us?" "I would, actually. They are personal keepsakes. They are none of your business." Derek stood up, his face flushing with anger. Everything about Grandma is my business. She was my grandmother. You are just... Just what? I asked coldly. Just the woman who has supported you financially for 8 years. Just the woman who cooked and cleaned while you sat on the couch. Just the woman who took care of your grandmother when you could not be bothered. You do not get to talk to me like that in my house. Your house, I laughed bitterly. I paid for this house, Derek. Every penny of the down payment came from my savings. Every mortgage payment has come from my salary. The only thing you contributed was your name on the deed. His face went pale with rage. That is irrelevant. In marriage, everything is shared. How convenient for you. Everything I earned is shared, but your grandmother's estate is family only. Marcus stepped forward. Here is what is going to happen. You are going to tell us what Grandma gave you. You are going to hand over whatever it is, and then you are going to walk away from this family with nothing. I stared at him. Excuse me. You heard me. You are not blood. You have no claim to anything that was Harriet's. Whatever you think you are entitled to, you are wrong. Derek nodded. Marcus is right. If you cooperate, we can end this amicably. We will divide the assets appropriately and go our separate ways. I could not believe what I was hearing. After everything I had done for this family, they were treating me like a stranger, like an obstacle to be removed. And if I do not cooperate, Derek's eyes went hard, then you can get out, tonight. Take your clothes and leave. I will file for divorce in the morning. You are throwing me out of my own house. My house, my grandmother's estate, my family. You never really belonged here, Sibylla. I think we both know that. I looked at my husband, this man I had shared a bed with for 8 years. I saw nothing there that I recognized. Whatever love we had once shared was gone, replaced by greed and entitlement and contempt. And in that moment I made my choice. Fine, I said quietly. I will go. Their faces flickered with surprise. They had expected me to fight, to argue, to beg. They had not expected surrender. Just like that, Marcus asked suspiciously. Just like that. I walked to the bedroom and pulled out a small suitcase. I packed only the essentials, clothes, toiletries, my laptop, my important documents. I could have told them then. I could have revealed the truth about Harriet's secret will, about the $38 million that was legally mine. I could have watched their faces crumble as they realized they had thrown away everything for nothing. But I did not. Harriet's voice echoed in my mind. Your worth is not determined by how others treat you. I did not owe them an explanation. I did not owe them anything. They had shown me exactly who they were, and now I would show them exactly who I was. I walked to the front door with my suitcase. Derek and Marcus stood in the living room, watching me leave with smug satisfaction. The lawyer will be in touch, Derek said. Do not try to fight this. You will not win. I looked back at him one last time. At the man who had promised to love and cherish me. At the stranger he had become. Goodbye, Derek, I said. Good luck finding what you are looking for. Then I walked out into the rain. I stood on the sidewalk for a long moment, letting the cold water soak through my clothes. The house I had built with my own money glowed warmly behind me, now occupied by people who did not deserve it. But I felt no despair, only clarity. I pulled out my phone and called for a taxi. 20 minutes later, I was checking into a hotel downtown, a modest room with a view of the city lights. I sat on the bed and let myself cry, not for the marriage that had ended, but for the woman I had been. The woman who had given too much of herself to people who did not appreciate her. The woman who had ignored warning signs because she wanted so badly to be loved. That woman was gone. In her place was someone new, someone stronger, someone who finally understood her own worth. That night I made a plan. Tomorrow I would start rebuilding my life. Tomorrow I would become the person Harriet had believed me to be. I woke early the next morning with a sense of purpose I had not felt in years. The first call I made was to Robert Chambers, Harriet's lawyer. I am ready, I said. Let us proceed with the will. I will file the papers today, he replied. The estate will be officially transferred within 30 days. I should warn you, once this becomes public record, Derek and Marcus will know. I understand. I want you to proceed. My second call was to a divorce attorney. I had done my research the night before, reading reviews and checking credentials. I chose Victoria Ashford, a sharp-minded woman known for her fierce advocacy for women in difficult divorces. I met her that afternoon in her sleek downtown office. She was in her 50s, with silver-streaked hair and intelligent eyes. She listened to my story without interruption, occasionally making notes on a legal pad. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. Let me make sure I understand. You paid the entire down payment on the house, approximately $80,000. You have made every mortgage payment for the past 5 years. You have been the primary breadwinner throughout your 8-year marriage, and your husband just threw you out. That is correct. And separately, you are the sole beneficiary of a $38 million estate that his family does not know about. Also correct. Victoria smiled slowly. Mrs. Sibylla, I have to say this is going to be deeply satisfying. Over the next 2 weeks, Victoria and I built our case. She requested bank records going back 8 years, documenting every check I had written, every direct deposit, every payment I had made. The paper trail was undeniable. Derek had contributed almost nothing financially to our household. Meanwhile, I went to First National Bank and opened the safety deposit box, using the key Harriet had given me. Inside, I found meticulously organized folders containing investment statements, property deeds account numbers, and a letter from Harriet's financial advisor confirming the total value of the estate. Everything was exactly as Robert Chambers had described. I also found one more thing: a small velvet pouch containing a pair of diamond earrings and a note in Harriet's handwriting. These belonged to my grandmother. She gave them to me on my wedding day. I want you to have them for yours. If you ever have a daughter, pass them on to her. Keep the chain of love going. I clutched the earrings to my chest and wept. When I felt strong enough, I called my parents in Ohio. I had been putting off this conversation, dreading their disappointment. Oh, sweetheart, my mother said when I finished explaining. We never liked him. We just did not want to say anything because you seemed so happy. We should have said something, my father added gruffly. Should have told you he was a bum. But you are out now. That is what matters. Are you going to be okay? My mother asked. Do you need us to come up there? I am going to be fine, I said, and for the first time I believed it. I have good lawyers. I have a plan. And I have something Derek never knew about. I told them about the inheritance. My mother gasped. My father went silent. $38 million, my mother whispered. From the grandmother. She saw the truth about Derek, I said. She knew what he was. And she made sure I would be taken care of. That woman was a saint, my father said quietly. God rest her soul. I also reached out to my old college friend Grace. We had drifted apart during my marriage, mostly because I was always too busy or too tired to maintain friendships. But Grace answered my call immediately. Sibylla, oh my God, it is so good to hear from you. How are you? How is married life? Actually, I said, that is why I am calling. I left Derek. It is a long story. Where are you? What do you need? I am coming right now. An hour later, Grace was sitting across from me in my hotel room, listening with widening eyes as I told her everything. I knew it, she said when I finished. I always knew there was something off about him. The way he never seemed to have a job, the way he let you do everything. I should have said something. Why did you not? Grace looked ashamed. Because you loved him. Because you seemed happy. Because I did not want to be the friend who could not be happy for her friend's marriage. She took my hand. I am so sorry. Do not apologize. I would not have listened anyway. I had to see it for myself. So what happens now? I smiled. Now I get everything back. And then some. Grace insisted I stay with her while the legal proceedings unfolded. Her apartment was small but comfortable with a spare bedroom and a cat named Mr. Whiskers, who immediately decided I was his new favorite person. He never likes anyone, Grace said, watching Mr. Whiskers curl up in my lap. He must know you need extra love right now. During those weeks, I threw myself into preparation. Victoria and I had multiple strategy sessions. Robert Chambers finalized the filing of Harriet's will. I documented everything Derek had ever said or done that demonstrated his true character. Derek, meanwhile, was making things worse for himself. He texted me, constantly alternating between threats and pleas. "You are going to regret this," one message said. "Baby, please come home, we can work this out," said another. "Marcus's lawyer is going to destroy you in court." Then hours later, "I love you, I miss you, please." I forwarded every message to Victoria. "He is building our case for us," she said with satisfaction. "These messages show a pattern of emotional manipulation and instability. The judge will not look kindly on this." Finally, Derek made his biggest mistake. He texted me, "If you do not drop this divorce, I will tell everyone you were cheating on me. I will ruin your reputation. No one will believe a word you say. Attempted defamation and witness intimidation." Victoria said, actually rubbing her hands together. Beautiful. Simply beautiful. 3 weeks after I left, the divorce papers were officially filed. The same day, Robert Chambers filed the validation of Harriet's private will with the probate court. The trap was set. Now all we had to do was wait. Derek and Marcus found out about the will on the same day they received the divorce papers. Robert Chambers told me later that when the notification arrived at their lawyer's office, there was actual shouting. Marcus apparently threw a chair. Derek had to be physically restrained. Their lawyer called Victoria immediately, demanding to know what was going on. "My client is the legal beneficiary of Harriet's estate as designated in her properly executed will," Victoria said smoothly. "All documentation has been filed with the probate court. I suggest you advise your clients to prepare for the divorce proceedings." "This is fraud," their lawyer spluttered. "Undue influence. We will contest this." "You are welcome to try. But I should mention that Harriet had the foresight to create a video recording of herself signing the will, accompanied by 2 witnesses and a physician who certified her mental competency. She also wrote a detailed letter explaining her reasoning. Your clients will not find any grounds for contesting." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "We will be in touch," the lawyer said finally, and hung up. Derek tried calling me directly, but I had blocked his number. He showed up at Grace's apartment building, buzzing her intercom repeatedly until she threatened to call the police. "I just want to talk to her," he shouted into the intercom. "I know she is up there. Sibylla, please. This is all a misunderstanding." "The only misunderstanding," Grace shouted back, "is that you thought you could treat her like garbage and get away with it. Leave now, or I am dialing 911. He left. But he sent letter after letter, each one more desperate than the last. I never opened them. I gave them to Victoria for evidence. The first court date arrived 6 weeks after I had walked out of my house. It was a preliminary hearing just to establish the basics of the case and set the schedule for the divorce proceedings. I dressed carefully that morning. A navy blue suit, simple pearl earrings, minimal makeup. I wanted to look composed and professional, not flashy or emotional. Victoria met me outside the courthouse. "Remember," she said, "you do not need to say anything today. I will do all the talking. Your job is simply to be present and stay calm." I nodded. "I am ready." We walked into the courtroom together. Derek was already there with his lawyer, a harried-looking man in a rumpled suit. Marcus sat in the gallery glaring at me with undisguised hatred. The judge was a stern woman in her 60s named Judge Patricia Hammond. She had a reputation for being fair but no nonsense. Victoria presented our case methodically. She walked through the financial records, showing how I had been the sole provider for our household for nearly 8 years. She presented the documentation of the house purchase, proving that every penny of the down payment had come from my personal savings. She submitted Derek's threatening text messages as evidence of his character. Derek's lawyer tried to argue that marriage meant shared assets, that Derek's contributions to the household could not be measured in purely financial terms. "Can you describe these contributions?" Judge Hammond asked. The lawyer stammered. Derek had not prepared him for this. "My client supported his wife emotionally. He maintained the home. Do you have any documentation of this, receipts for household maintenance, evidence of emotional support?" "Marriage is not something you can document," the lawyer said weakly. Financial contributions can be documented, Judge Hammond replied. And from what I have seen, the plaintiff has extensive documentation while the defendant has none. She turned to look at Derek directly. Mr. Derek, I have reviewed the evidence presented. You allowed your wife to support you financially for 8 years while contributing essentially nothing. You then threw her out of the house she paid for in the middle of the night, based on a false accusation. Do you have anything to say for yourself? Derek stood up, his face red. She stole from my grandmother. She manipulated a dying woman into giving her millions of dollars that should have gone to family. The estate matter is being handled separately by the probate court, Judge Hammond said coldly. But for the record, I have reviewed Harriet's will and the accompanying documentation. There is no evidence of manipulation. There is, however, extensive evidence that Mrs. Sibylla cared for Harriet for years, while you, her own grandson, could not be bothered. Derek's lawyer put a hand on his arm, urging him to sit down. Based on the evidence presented, Judge Hammond continued, I am ruling in favor of the plaintiff. The house at 47 Maple Drive is awarded entirely to Mrs. Sibylla, as she is solely responsible for its purchase. Mr. Derek will have 30 days to vacate the premises. Additionally, Mr. Derek will pay Mrs. Sibylla $25,000 in compensatory damages for the distress caused by his wrongful eviction. Derek looked like he was going to be sick. Furthermore, the judge added, I am granting the divorce effective immediately. Mrs. Sibylla, you are free to resume using your maiden name if you wish. Thank you, Your Honor, Victoria said, barely containing her smile. I stood there trying to process what had just happened. I had won. I had my house back. I was free. As we left the courtroom, Derek caught up with us in the hallway. Sibylla, wait, he said, grabbing my arm. Please, this is not fair. Everything I did was because I loved you. I was confused. I was under pressure from Marcus. I did not mean any of it. I looked at his hand on my arm, then at his face. This man who I had loved. This man who had used me. Let go of me, I said quietly. Please just listen. I have listened for 8 years. I listened while you made excuses. I listened while you promised things would change. I listened while you blamed everyone but yourself. I pulled my arm free. I am done listening. I walked away without looking back. Outside the courthouse, the sun was shining. Victoria shook my hand. Congratulations, she said. You did it. We did it, I corrected. Grace was waiting by the car. She ran over and hugged me tight. It is over, she said. You are free. I hugged her back, letting the tears finally fall. But they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of relief, of release, of a new beginning. The months that followed were a journey of healing and rediscovery. I moved back into my house, the house I had bought with my own money, the house that was finally truly mine. The first thing I did was donate all of Derek's remaining belongings to charity. I did not want any reminders of him in my space. Then I began the process of making the house my own. I painted the walls colors I actually liked instead of the beige Derek had insisted on. I bought new furniture, comfortable pieces that reflected my taste. I turned the spare bedroom into an art studio, something I had always wanted but never had time for. I did not spend extravagantly, despite now having access to $38 million. I understood that money was a tool, not a goal. I worked with Harriet's financial advisor to create a sustainable plan. Most of the money remained invested, generating income that would last for decades. But I did use some of it for causes that mattered. I established the Harriet Foundation, a charitable organization dedicated to supporting women escaping abusive relationships. We provided emergency housing, legal assistance, job training, and counseling. Within the first year, we helped over 200 women rebuild their lives. I also created a scholarship fund in Harriet's name, providing full college tuition for first-generation students from low-income families. Every year, 10 young people would get the opportunity that I had worked so hard for, but without the crushing burden of debt. Grace became my constant companion during this time. We had weekly dinners, went to movies, took yoga classes together. She helped me remember who I was before Derek, the ambitious, creative, hopeful woman I used to be. You know what I love most about you now, Grace said one evening over wine. You laugh more. You used to always seem so tired, so weighed down. Now you actually seem happy. I am happy, I said, and it was true. For the first time in years, I actually feel like myself. I reconnected with my parents as well. They came to visit for 2 weeks, and I showed them around. Boston took them to my favorite restaurants, let them see the life I was building. We are so proud of you, my mother said, tears in her eyes. Not because of the money, because of how strong you have become. My father hugged me tight. You are a fighter, he said. Always have been. We just forgot to remind you for a while. I also took time to explore interests I had neglected. I enrolled in painting classes at a local community center. I started jogging in the mornings, feeling my body grow stronger with each mile. I read books for pleasure again, losing myself in stories that had nothing to do with spreadsheets or tax codes. One day, about a year after the divorce, I received a letter from an unexpected source. It was from Derek. I almost threw it away unopened, but something made me pause. Curiosity, perhaps, or a need for closure. The letter was 2 pages long, written in Derek's sloppy handwriting. Sibylla, it began. I do not expect you to forgive me. I do not deserve forgiveness. But I need you to know that I understand now what I did wrong. He wrote about hitting rock bottom after losing everything. About how Marcus had abandoned him once it was clear there was no money to be gained. About how he had been forced to find a job, a real job, working at a hardware store for minimum wage. Living like this has taught me things, the letter continued. I see now how much you did for us, how much you sacrificed. I took everything for granted. I let my greed and my brother's influence turn me into someone I do not recognize. I am not asking for another chance. I know that bridge is burned. I just wanted to say I am sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. You deserved better than me. I read the letter twice, then set it down. Did I believe his remorse was genuine? Maybe. Maybe not. It did not really matter. I wrote back a brief reply. Derek, I received your letter. I appreciate your apology, though it does not change anything. I wish you well in your future. Please do not contact me again. Sibylla. That was the end of it. The final thread cut. As for Marcus, I heard through the legal grapevine that he had lost several major clients after news of the inheritance dispute became public. Apparently, people did not want to do business with someone who would bully his brother's wife over a dying grandmother's wishes. His reputation never fully recovered. But I did not dwell on either of them. They were my past. I was focused on my future. I thought often about Harriet during this time, about her wisdom, her patience, her quiet strength. She had seen so clearly what I could not see. She had trusted me with her legacy, and I was determined to honor that trust. 1 year to the day after her death, I visited her grave. I brought flowers, her favorite yellow roses, and sat beside the headstone for a long time. Thank you, I said softly, for believing in me, for seeing something in me that I could not see in myself. I promise I will keep trying to be worthy of your faith. A breeze rustled the leaves overhead, and for just a moment I felt her presence. Warm and approving and full of love. Standing at Harriet's grave that day, I understood something profound. The journey I had been on was not about money or revenge or even justice. It was about self-discovery. It was about learning that my value did not depend on anyone else's opinion of me. For 8 years, I had measured my worth by how much I could give to others. I had sacrificed my time, my energy, my dreams all to make someone else happy. And in the end, that someone had thrown me away like garbage. But Harriet had seen the truth. She had seen that my generosity was a strength, not a weakness. That my capacity for love was precious, not something to be exploited. Now I know better. Now I choose myself. I still volunteer at the shelter we funded through the Harriet Foundation. I still paint, though I am not very good at it. I still have dinner with Grace every week. I still call my parents every Sunday. Some people ask me if I will ever marry again. I tell them I do not know. Maybe someday I will meet someone who deserves my heart, or maybe I will be happy on my own. Either way, I know one thing for certain. I will never again lose myself in someone else. If you are watching this and you see yourself in my story, I want you to know something. You are not alone. You are not crazy. You are not asking for too much by wanting to be treated with respect. It might feel impossible right now. It might feel like you are trapped. But I promise you, there is a way out. There are people who will help you. There is a life waiting for you on the other side, and you are worth fighting for. So here is my question for you. Have you ever been in a situation where someone made you feel worthless, only for you to discover your own strength? I would love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this video touched your heart, please give it a like. It helps more people find these stories. And if you are not already subscribed to this channel, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you do not miss any future videos. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. You never know whose life you might change. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminded you that no matter how dark things seem, there is always light ahead. Take care of yourselves. Remember your worth. And never ever let anyone make you forget how precious you are. Until next time.